Be informed and stay up to date with what your elected representatives are doing on your behalf with the State House Report.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Ivory Thigpen. I am representative for South Carolina House District 79, which is in Richland County. It encompasses Northeast Columbia, a small portion of Elgin, Richland County, as well as Blythewood, Richland County. I just began my third elected term and fifth year in the South Carolina House of Representatives. In this year, I have sought and was successfully elected to the position of chair-elect for the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. And I just wanted to come with you and just share some thoughts about what we look forward to and where we believe we will have challenges and hopefully some triumphs as well. I'd like to begin by talking about just what took place in this previous year. The pandemic, no doubt, has challenged us as a state. First and foremost, I think we're trying to do the things that will secure the safety and the welfare of all of our citizens, particularly those who are most vulnerable and persons of colors, because anytime there is an economic impact or health issues and concerns, our communities are affected. I know early on when this pandemic began, it was actually my area, Northeast Richland County, that had 2 out of the top 3 highest zip codes for incidents and cases of positive reportings of the COVID. Also not far from me and near and close was 29203, which also has the highest incident of diabetes and amputees, and really becomes the issue of healthcare access as well as equity and being insured and having coverage. But I know we fought hard, particularly with cooperation with MUSC and DHEC to ensure that there was a lot of testing early in those areas. We also know that when it comes to housing and health, which are often related, that when persons have challenges created by economic downfall where they cannot meet their normal obligations, that it's our part to help ensure that there are resources that are made available to them. So we're still fighting and we're still trying to provide help and relief to those who are, again, the most vulnerable in our communities. When we talk about COVID and some of the issues that it's created, one is education. We talk about the learning gaps and individuals not having access to broadband, as well as not even having, Wi-Fi at home or technology such as, laptops and other components to successfully learn virtually and distance learn. The state does have to step up and provide it, particularly in our rural areas. When we talk about even just income levels, because one of the things that has been noted that, those who are middle and lower middle class and even lower class, their drop-off in learning is much greater, particularly when they're away from school. Everything from vocabulary and word count to just their successful mastery of many objectives in education. It becomes very, very, very difficult, and we fall farther behind. And so that's why it's so important for us to not only direct funding toward it, but make sure that, once again, those who are most vulnerable are getting the access and the resources that they need. We also saw that during this pandemic, there was another issue, another epidemic and pandemic that has lasted a lot longer than coronavirus, which is just the racial injustices, systematic injustice that we see in our country. We saw a lot of unrest behind the killing in Minnesota and many other black bodies and brown bodies who have been, we would say, unfairly targeted, and lives have been ended just simply because of not only poor police practices, but really just an overall attitude, I think, of our country as a whole, particularly when it comes to criminal justice. And so as we continue to move forward and seeking to right that ship, there was a panel created. I sit on it. It's the Equitable Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement Reform Committee, where we dealt with primarily 4 areas. One was police tactics and training. The other was civil forfeiture and citizens arrest. Another was hate crime legislation. There are only 3 states in the United States who do not currently have hate crime legislation at the state level. It's Wyoming, Arkansas, and South Carolina. Arkansas has already drafted a bill, and it's due to be voted on in their legislative body this year. Wyoming, I'm not even sure if they have a large minority population, which usually are the victims of hate crimes. But it goes without saying, with us being ground zero for probably the most heinous hate crime in the 21st century, and we speak of the Emmanuel 9 that lost their lives just simply because of hatred of one person. We are without excuse for having hate crime legislation. It's been one of my passions and pushes, as we did a caravan of love this past year in 2020, where we drove from Charleston, the site of Emmanuel, all the way to the state capitol. I'm just trying to bring awareness. And when we talk about what you can do is, as we shine a light on these disparities and injustices that exist, not only in our legislation, but many times in our policies and practices as well. When you as citizens make calls and you as citizens speak out about it, when you as citizens make those who are your neighbors aware about it, when we have the conversation and don't allow it to be swept under the rug, then it helps give us the momentum that we need and hopefully the political will, because that's what it boils down to helping other legislators, particularly across the aisle, take the necessary steps and measures to pass meaningful legislation. I also have focused a lot on criminal justice reform. I think our chair of the Black Caucus talked about just our individuals and human beings and citizens that are incarcerated. But even long before they get incarcerated, even when they're apprehended and held and moved through our judicial system, this week we voted on judges in South Carolina, everywhere from the appellate court to the circuit courts to family court to administrative law court. And we had 4 qualified and extremely talented African American females who made it through the extensive process of screening, only to be dismissed and overlooked when it came to the very political and often hyper-partisan process of election, where the senators and the representatives vote on who will fill these different seats on the various benches. One is probably a well-known candidate, wife of our mayor here in Columbia, DeAndre Benjamin, extremely qualified, more than 10 years on the circuit court, was defeated by someone who was a family court judge, which, as precedence, tenure, and time going, and time served goes, she was definitely more qualified and more aligned, but yet, we see once again that South Carolina at this point, not only does this bench not reflect its demographics, but there seems no desire to prize and prioritize diversity of thought, age, and gender. But we continue to work to fight because, as I stated, when we talk about the criminal justice system, we're talking about how a person from all walks of life, from any socioeconomic status, any ethnicity or culture, can get a fair chance in our judicial system. And as you know, disparities exist right now when it comes to brown and Black people, minorities. And so even if we move further down the line from the actual judges and those who would, we pray, give fair trial, we can even move to enforcement of law, and when individuals are being, profiled or even apprehended. I think we have a lot of tremendous challenges there, particularly in our hiring practices, our cultural and diversity training and implicit bias training. I think we need standards across the board as far as it comes to police practices and uses of force. One of the things that I've been advocating for and have even authored legislation is us forming a database and collecting information from every stop, whether a ticket is written or not, and every use of force, regardless of whether it's lethal or not, because currently information is only gathered when a citation is not written for a stop, and currently information is only gathered when lethal force is used. But a lot of times it's less lethal force that really drives the wedge between community and officers, and creating the type of distrust that we see is only growing in recent years and months. And I think that particularly after the unrest and the protests that we saw across our country this past year, we really have to do more. And I think it's up to this body, and the Black Caucus has taken it to the forefront, even to the point of civil asset forfeiture, which, if you're not familiar with that term, it means that if law enforcement pulls you over and they suspect you of a crime, that any cash or property that you have on you, they can take from you. And whether you are proven innocent or guilty, that property remains and now becomes the custody of that law enforcement agency. And as you can imagine, disparities are pulling over people who are less fortunate and more economically disadvantaged. Those are the ones who can't afford it most, more than any other. And so, for instance, if you're riding and you get accused of drug trafficking and you don't even have any on you, but yet, or even not enough to create an actual felony, then that money, whatever the amount, even if you were riding with somebody and you didn't even know they had it, and you had $200 cash, and that money is no longer yours. And I think that's one of the things that we really have to begin, just one of many, that we're really beginning to fight to help, again, those who are the most vulnerable in our communities. But as we look at a larger picture, and we even look nationally, because it does have implications here, we can even look at, as we have swung the pendulum, and we have, I believe, now a more competent and responsive presidential cabinet and leader of the free world. Here in South Carolina, we still face some challenges. As a matter of fact, I think we face a backlash of it. We lost several senators, decreasing our numbers in the Senate. We lost total, it was a net gain of, a net loss of one, but we lost 3 representatives here, or several representatives, and it has made our work here even more difficult. And because of that, with the Republicans being just a few votes shy of a supermajority, their agenda, and that is what they seek to pass by law, they've become very, very aggressive. We see it. We can expect to, in the very near future, debate a fetal heartbeat bill, which basically says that if an individual has become pregnant and there's a heartbeat detected in the fetus, then one cannot perform an abortion. The challenges with such a bill is that this heartbeat can be detected as early, sometimes as 5 weeks and 6 weeks. If a female has become pregnant and has missed her cycle, she very well may not know that she's pregnant before she's and have an opportunity to decide what she would want to do with her body. We look and see that even with home pregnancies tests, which measure the amount of human growth hormone, that's not even detected to about 2 weeks after you've missed your period. So you're already in the 6-week realm before you really even have an idea of whether or not you have become pregnant. As much as this heartbeat bill makes it seem and sound like it is a scientific debate and argument about the viability of life and whether or not life exists, it really is, to be quite honest, not a scientific discussion. It really is a religious one, and religion, in my opinion, is not even clear on when life begins. Some religions, even Christianity, is not completely clear on when it is. Some would say conception, some would say some point after that, some would say with the breath of life. And not to get into a religious debate of when life begins, although I do hold an opinion on that, I do believe that there's a moment when a soul, or is deposited, if you want to talk in religious terms. I do believe there's a moment when the body becomes aware and conscious and begins to sense pain and begins to direct its own bodily processes and functions. And I do not believe that happens at conception. Now, when exactly that is, I don't know. That's why Roe v. Wade has given us viability. And we have looked at viability, whether 28, 24, or 20 weeks, as a determination. Can this fetus live outside of the mother's womb on its own? For if it's dependent completely on the mother, or the parts that are assembling cannot function on their own separately, then has it yet become life? And really, the sad part about this whole discussion is, there's not a lot of females that are here in this body to give their opinion and say, and it's sad that we as men, who often do not have any experience with this process or what takes place in gestation within the body, to begin to demand and dictate. It's really, I think, an overreach. I think it's a discussion between a person and their physician or primary care practitioner. I think it is a discussion really between them and their God of what they believe and what they believe to be right. I tell people all the time that I believe and profess in life. I am pro-life. But pro-life and a woman's having a right to choose what she does with her body are not mutually exclusive. But we see that this is not about a woman's body. This is not a heartbeat bill. This is a heartless bill. It takes no thought for the life of the mother. It takes no thought for the challenges that she may face. It takes no thought of her being able to decide what's best for her own life. So as much as our counterparts may profess pro-life, truly they're pro-birth. And again, this isn't a heartbeat because, as a physician, I can tell you that the heart hasn't fully formed, that the neural tube hasn't formed, the central nervous system hasn't formed. What you sense is really an ebb and a flow because that system, although it is not even closed yet, it has a beat that is created completely separate from any nervous system activity that causes the blood to flow back and forth. And that is what creates that sound and heartbeat. And so really it's not even a true heart that is formed, but yet this is another political attempt by those who are on the far extreme to really punish people and try to keep us divided. But that's not the only one. There's going to be an open carry bill, and the open carry bill, some call it the constitutional carry, and it suggests that persons could carry and brandish firearms at any place in public and no longer would be restricted from carrying them in certain areas. And if ever there was a fearful thing for a person of color, that would be it. As we've seen on January 6th, that there is a violent and vocal minority that is very extreme and seeks to cause not only harm but chaos and confusion. And if given the opportunity to carry arms, no doubt that they would be a threat. No doubt that they would intimidate with these things. And really, sadly, the state of the community between it and law enforcement isn't one where I don't know that law enforcement will feel confident and comfortable in coming to the aid or intervening in those type of situations. But beyond that, I always have to put things in an African American context, particularly as a Black Legislative Caucus. Because when you talk about an open carry, for Black people and brown people, that really means open season. When you look at all these instances where Black persons were killed and fatally wounded by law enforcement, what ultimately becomes adjudicated and becomes a point of discussion in defense was, did the officer fear for their life? In many instances, these Black and brown persons were only armed with the melanin of their skin. But yet, you want us to agree to legislate that all persons can carry guns when we know that we're already seen as a threat just because of our skin. If Black persons were armed in this way, my greatest fear, again, that it would not be open carry, it would be open season. They would have all the justification that is needed to say that I feared for my life, and they would handle us with lethal force on more frequent occasions. Now, that's not to paint law enforcement to be bad individuals. This, in my opinion, just speaks to the reality of where we are and what we deal with. So we have our challenges as a Black Caucus this year, but we want you to know that we are here for you. If you need to reach out to us about any concerns, if you want to help us in this fight to pass legislation such as hate crime, if you want to help us to pass legislation such as dealing with law enforcement tactics and reform, if you want to help us with helping to bridge this educational gap as well as health disparity gap, we're more than welcome to organize and create the type of groundswell that gives us an advantage when we advocate on the floor. Because again, more attention that we bring to it, the more of a light we shine on the darkness that is here, the more we can create the political will across the aisle to accomplish and to do something. One of the things as we look forward and ahead to both the gubernatorial races as well as the presidential races that are coming in the future, we really need our churches and our community leaders to come together, because we can't wait till then. We really need our Divine Nine. As I am Greek, I know our chairman, boasted her Alpha Kappa Alpha association. I will boast my Kappa Alpha Psi affiliation, that I do believe that the Divine Nine really helps to be a place where persons can organize and we can mobilize and we can get out the vote as well as register individuals to vote, because that is how we get the numbers to actually change laws and protect all all the people of South Carolina. So again, I'm Dr. Ivory Thigpen, South Carolina Representative, District 79, Chair-elect of the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. I am available. I solicit your prayers because I am a practitioner of faith, a preacher, a pastor, but more importantly, I'm here fighting for the people of South Carolina. Thank you.